Hey, baby cakes, it's Mrs. Klein.
Hola, amigo, it's Mrs. Wolbrin.
We are here with your third and final podcast for lesson 11. We're going to go over the information in sections 5, 6, and 7.
Yeah.
All right. We left off talking about the differences between Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton.
Yep.
And it was a huge conflict, definitely,
Oh, yeah.
within George Washington's cabinet. Now we're going to move on and talk about what happens after George Washington has left and John Adams becomes the second president of the United States.
Yep. And remember, Adams was Washington's vice president.
Yes.
So the Federalists are continuing to hold power, right? Washington served 2 terms, and now we've got John Adams.
Okay.
So here we go. When the framers of the Constitution created the Electoral College, they imagined that the electors would simply choose the 2 best leaders for president and vice president. That was how the nation's first 2 presidential elections worked. By the 3rd election in 1796, however, it was clear that political parties had become part of the election process.
All right. The Republicans sponsored Thomas Jefferson for president. The Federalists supported John Adams. When the electoral votes were counted, John Adams was elected president by just 3 votes, and Jefferson came in second, making him vice president. The nation's new top 2 leaders were political leaders from opposing parties.
Yeah. So
yikes.
Going
to be some conflict. There's going to be some conflict with that.
Okay. Now, during President Adams' presidency, one of the biggest issues was called the Alien and Sedition Acts, and that's what we're going to be talking about next. So President Adams tried to work closely with Jefferson at first, but Adams found that party violence made such efforts useless. Meanwhile, Federalists in Congress passed 4 controversial laws known as the Alien and Sedition Acts. They argued that these laws were needed as protection against foreigners who might threaten the nation. However, the real purpose of the Alien and Sedition Acts was to make life difficult for the Federalists' rivals, the Republicans.
All right, 3 of the laws, the Alien Acts, were aimed at aliens or non-citizens. The first law lengthened the time it took for an immigrant to become a citizen with the right to vote from 5 to 14 years.
And, this is important because most immigrants voted Republican.
Okay.
So that's how it was aimed at the Republicans.
All right, we're gonna cut off their power by not letting people have the opportunity to vote as quickly as they normally would.
Yeah. Okay. The other 2 Alien Acts allowed the president to either jail or depart aliens who were suspected of activities that threatened the government.
All right. The 4th law, known as the Sedition Act, made sedition or encouraging rebellion against the government a crime. Its definition of sedition included printing, uttering, or publishing any false, scandalous, and malicious or hateful writing against the government, Congress, or the president.
Yeah. And guys, we just talked about the Bill of Rights. These
are
all violating our First Amendment, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions. Republicans viewed the Sedition Act as an attack on the rights of free speech and free press. Since the federal government was enforcing the act, Republicans looked to the states to protect these freedoms.
Thomas Jefferson and James Madison drew up a set of resolutions or statements opposing the Alien and Sedition Acts and sent them to state legislatures for approval. They argued that Congress had gone beyond the Constitution in passing these acts. States, therefore, had a duty to nullify the laws, that is, to declare them to be without legal force.
Yeah. Now, only 2 states, Virginia and Kentucky, adopted the resolutions. The arguments put forward in the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions was based on the state's doctrine of the Constitution. This theory holds that rights not specifically given to the federal government remain with the states.
All right, remember, we're talking about the 10th Amendment, right? Yeah. It's all about that. When no other states approved the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions, the protest died, however.
But it's going to come back.
Yeah, and again and again.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So now we're going to talk about the election of 1800. And once again, Republican leaders supported Thomas Jefferson for president and hoped to avoid the strange outcome of the last election by choosing a New York politician named Aaron Burr to run as his vice president.
The Federalists chose John Adams to run for re-election as president, while Charles Pinckney of South Carolina was selected to run for vice president.
Yeah. Now, the campaign.
It was nasty.
Yeah.
It was really nasty.
You guys think they're bad now.
I know. It was really bad back then. Yeah.
The candidates outlined their campaign issues early. Jefferson supported the Constitution and states' rights and promised to run a frugal and simple government. Adams ran on his record of peace and prosperity.
The campaign, however, centered more on insults than on issues.
Yeah. Now, the Federalists were divided at this point, okay? Hamilton, leader of the Federalists, and his followers refused to support John Adams because of disagreements over the president's foreign policy.
As the campaign heated up, Hamilton worked feverishly behind the scenes to convince the men chosen for the Electoral College to cast their presidential ballots for Pinckney over Adams.
Mm-hmm. And now, when the Electoral College voted early in 1801, it was clear that John Adams had lost the election. But to whom? Under the Constitution, each elector cast 2 votes, with the idea that the candidate finishing second would be vice president. All of the Republican electors voted for Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr, and the result was a tie between them.
Yikes, there's a tie. So now how do you deal with that? All right. In the case of a tie, the Constitution sends the election to the House of Representatives, where each state has 1 vote. When the House voted, the result was another tie, you guys.
So after 6 days and 35 ballots, it was Federalist Alexander Hamilton who broke the deadlock. He asked his supporters in the House to vote for Jefferson, believe it or not.
Yeah, even though they were like butting heads for sure.
Because of the 2 Republicans, he said, Jefferson is to be preferred. He is by far not so dangerous a man. The tie was broken and Jefferson was elected president.
All right. In 1804, the 12th Amendment was added to the Constitution to prevent such ties. The amendment calls for the Electoral College to cast separate ballots for president and vice president. If no presidential candidate receives a majority of electoral votes, the House of Representatives chooses a president from the top 3 candidates. If no candidate for vice president receives a majority, the Senate chooses the vice president.
Yeah. So a peaceful revolution. The election of 1800 was a victory for Jefferson and his Republican Party, but it was also a victory for the new system of government established by the Constitution. In the United States, power had just passed from one group to another without a single shot being fired.
Yeah, it's called like a bloodless revolution where power goes from one party to the other, and there wasn't a war being fought in order to make something like that happen.
Yeah, it was completely peaceful, the way it was meant to be.
Meant to be. All right, you guys, the presidency of John Adams is a little bit of a review. During Adams' presidency, Federalists used the Alien and Sedition Acts to attack Republicans. In response, Republicans urged states to nullify these laws.
Okay, and then just to review the election of 1800 and the 12th Amendment, Adams lost the election of 1800 to Thomas Jefferson after the Federalists broke a tie between Jefferson and Aaron Burr. The election was sent to the House of Representatives, and after days of deadlock, Jefferson was eventually elected president. In 1804, the 12th Amendment was added to the Constitution to prevent such ties in the future.
Yeah, and this, we should mention, is also the beginning of really bad blood between Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton, because it's not over between the 2 of them.
Nope.
All right, you guys, love you.
Gotta go.